Hello and welcome to the webinar on why office design trends seem to change so fast. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker today, Jan Andrle, Head of Architecture at CAPEXUS. Jan will talk about today about what is the office from past to today, what has changed from layout to design, what kind of impact had the COVID pandemic on how users perceive the office, how employers perceive the office, and also what is the theory and experience about office design changes, why it changes so fast, what kind of impact it has. And we will also talk about what is the relevance of office in the hybrid age. And Jan will present us two very interesting case studies about a transformative change in two companies. One is Vodafone, and the second is the building called River Corner. I think we can get to it. So the floor is yours, Jan, and you can screen share.
All right. So let me see. Share. So can you see the full screen?
No, not yet. You need to go to full screen mode in PowerPoint.
Yeah, well, I have a full screen here, so don't quite know what should I set it up so you can see it as well. Sharing. Okay, let's try this. Share. Okay. So, is it working now?
Yeah, this is correct.
Great. All right. Sorry, just give me a minute. I'm just setting some things here as well. Welcome. Thank you for introduction, Peter. As Peter said, my name is Jan. I work as an architect at CAPEXUS, which is a design and build company based in Prague. And just before we get to the main topic, I just want to take a moment and to introduce our company, CAPEXUS. Over or during 11 years of our existence, I will probably skip that. Over 11 years of our existence, we have delivered over 750,000 square meters of new office space to our clients. And I think we can count the clients over 500 and more. CAPEXUS, what's also interesting to mention, CAPEXUS is part of Studio Alliance, which is European Association of Workplace Experts who are basically sharing knowledge among themselves. And the members are similar as we are, and I'm proud to say that we are a number one design and build company on Czech market. And similarly, other members of Studio Alliance are as well in the tops of their businesses countries that you can see also on the presentation. Moving on. Why office design trends change so fast? Office design trends let me start from the beginning. I want to explore with you fast-changing trends in office interior design, and I will, as Peter mentioned, I will show you some of examples in our project, which I think nicely demonstrates, what's going on in regards to the trends. We move on. Past 3 years, what do you think they have in common? What would you say they have in common? Well, I think we can all agree that these years have been most difficult and unexpected in at least in the last decade. Naturally, the way of working, the way how we work, was responding to these limitations and challenges that we have faced in these last years. Basically, what we have seen is the rise of remote work, also flexibility of the office, and sort of reinvention of home office. Because let's face it, before pandemic, home office could be described as a laundry day in many companies, in many cultures. But really, the reinvention of home office in pandemic basically put it into totally different perspective. Also, emphasis or real appreciation of mental and physical well-being of employees was basically on top on the agenda of the companies as well. Well, the change in trends happened naturally even before pandemic, but pandemic sort of like kick-started implementation in all the different businesses throughout the spectrum. So not only high-achieving companies were basically implementing those trends, meaning being the flexibility and so on. One more disruption, one of the most recent disruption, I think, is the AI technology in software. I think, as you all know, or if you tried, for example, ChatGPT. So I took the liberty to ask GPT what he thinks basically about this topic. And here are the answers. So what is very, very interesting about this is if you ask it one same question a couple of times, it will come up with similar meaning but quite different answer. Anyway, this is what I got from it. So why are office trends changing so fast? Technological advancements are definitely one of the reasons. For example, as technology evolves, it has an impact on how people work, and office design trends follow. Meaning, for example, the rise of remote work has increased the demand for ergonomic furniture and flexible workspaces. That means that the furniture that companies buy or designers design into the offices are changing for more variable versatile or flexible furniture. Also changing work culture. People are getting used to being in different environment, and they have also different needs. You can see also employee needs and preferences, sustainability, and cost effectiveness. I don't want to go into detail on each and every aspect. I think we will demonstrate this on the following slides. But just interesting thing how now we are starting to implement also AI into the way how we work basically. And it was very interesting, to talk with AI about this topic and to hear or to have some summary of what's on the internet, I guess, for that. So if we move on, I prepared some examples of how the office, or how typical office could have looked like back in the day. This is an example from 2006. Some random company, I would call it, just for the sake of example. As you can see, it's quite monofunctional, and casual work is being done in the open spaces all over the area. It's focused on efficiency and workstation, maximization of workstations, basically. There are several meeting rooms, which is fine, and some closed offices, which are also dedicated for casual or focused work. But you can also see that there's a hierarchical structure applied, in a sense that managers or bosses are sitting in the offices, and regular employees are occupying the open space. So I think the theme here is monofunctionality and hierarchical structure. If we move on, here we can see example how we perceive ideal office today. Fun fact is that this is the layout of our own office, and it was just finished recently. And as you can see, monofunctionality is no longer present here. We have lots of different options or type of spaces, areas which can foster different types of work. And also a casual. Well, you can notice that each area which has different functions is distinguished by color. So, for example, casual work, which is basically what we have typically in the past perceived as an office or working environment. So in this case, it occupies less than half of the office, even less so, I think. And that's because also sort of like a desk sharing is applied, but I think we can get to that also in a specific case study that's following. So also, I want to give you some picture how the office could have seemed like back in the day, like monofunctional, typical, and how it looks nowadays. That's just an example, but I think we can draw from that the office nowadays, like the trendy office, looks less and less like an office. There are some elements and features that were not typical for the office environment before. So now I would like you to demonstrate or show you a case study of a project, Vodafone Hub, which we did for Vodafone during the years of pandemic, basically. So what was happening there? Basically, Vodafone conducted a survey among employees, asking them how they perceive work, or how would they like to work even after the pandemic? Well, the outcome of the survey was that 60% of time, the employees would like to spend 60% of time working home and 40% of time working in the office. So that gave them some idea how to set up the new workplace strategy. But they also implemented the idea that those 40% of time in the office shouldn't be spent working, like reading emails, but rather to have face-to-face meetings, interaction with colleagues, formal or informal meetings in like cafe, and so on. Basically, use the office more as a hub rather than just an office. So if we look at the example of how it looked before, we can see again in this example quite large or heavy monofunctional team. 80% or more of the area was used for casual work. They had used shared desking before, so it was not new idea for them, shared desking. But what was the key aspect of that is that, as you can see on the layout, upper layout, there is no real choice. They could choose that they can work from a right corner of the office or left corner of the office, but the style of work or working environment is still the same. So that was no real choice. Well, after this survey, they decided they want to, change, adapt, and drastically evolve the workplace. So that's why we basically got this project, and we developed that workplace strategy into the layout that you can see down below, which quite heavily relies on the connection areas that we call connection areas, basically areas that are open or closed, areas that are mostly for like casual flow style of work, which also demonstrates the center and the heart of the space in the company. Following with co-creation areas, co-creation areas, which are for more casual work, and there are also concentration areas in smaller percentage of total area for strictly focused work. So the real importance of this new concept is you still need an office, but you don't necessarily use it and need it for casual or concentrated work. There is a place for that, but it's rather for interactions and meetings, that which you cannot get if you do remote work. If you look at pictures where basically how it looked before, it's clearly visible that it was like a gray monofunctional, almost I would say depressing kind of interior, office interior, and only color basically was red, represented on marketing eyes. So after the transition, you can see that they basically developed lots of different work styles, areas. As I already mentioned, mostly for different styles of work, not necessarily for the like typical work that you can do on home office as well. There were areas also for relax, chill, and concentration. Small hubs for enclosed meetings, but just for a quick short meeting, not necessary for 1 hour meeting, and so on. Places that foster informal interaction, all these things that can spark some creative thinking or some new idea among the employees. It's worth to mention that this specific floor that I'm showing was mostly occupied by developers. So we have seen transformation of office area, and now I want to share with you a transformation of building reception or building lobby, how it looked and worked before, and how it looks now. For this, I have chosen basically a river corner building, which is in Prague on the left bank of the river Vltava, and here you can see the picture. It's the only one I found out. Only one I found. Sorry. How it looked before the reconstruction. Basically, the notion was to make the building value higher. So one of the things that can help with that quite significantly is transformation of the reception. Before, as you can see, the reception had basically only two functions, and that is that there was a receptionist, he basically served as a tourniquet. Someone came in, announced it himself, and he was led into the office. And also fire alarm, basically post. So only basically two options of reception. And it was quite plain and empty. And there was sort of like a waiting area on the left side of the picture, as you can see, but it was almost never used. So I'm going straight to the implementation, and here you can see already the photos of the after actual reconstruction. Those are not visuals, those are photos. And here you can see that we have imprinted into the space totally different layout, first of all, and second of all, also a quite rich mix of different design elements, which are basically supporting the function and good feel from the space. The design and the good feel from the space, design feel, is not only thing that's happening there. It's worth to mention that now, instead just of the reception and fire alarm post, there is also a bookable meeting area, which is here. And there are other and different options, functions in the space as well. The reception area is not only in the front, but it also revolves around the corridor further back into the building. On these pictures, you can see that into that lobby, we have implemented this technological thing, basically digital lockers that can be used both by building occupants and also by couriers, for example, like FAL or some package delivery service that will deposit the package for you, and they will just send an SMS to you, and you can pick it up, sort of like I'm sure you're familiar with the Alza boxes. On the right picture, you can see that there is a lounge area. So we have implemented some seating arrangements, but it's not just about seating arrangements. They need to be done in a fashion that it really foster or it enables for people to sit there and spend some time in there. The design itself needs to basically allow this happen, because if it's not it's not pleasant, you are right on the spot, for example, you're not nicely covered, or the design doesn't promote this possibility, you will not basically use it. So I think in this case it came out really nicely. And there is also digital signage, which broadcast some, like basic information on building, for example, weather or news. And on following pictures, you can see that from the other side of that station is a coffee point or coffee corner, which is available for the people who are just present in the lobby area. So I think if we move on, I have just showed you briefly the case study of office transformation and case study of transformation of the building reception, building area. We've seen some things that were happening there, and I just want to highlight what are the common themes, both in those two projects and also generally what we see and perceive now as important themes in the office interior. So first of all, and this is quite old one, typical one, that's activity-based working, meaning that you develop lots of various areas or functions for different work styles. This is basically providing people with choice where they want to work, and as I will show you later, it's really important. Next one being biophilic design. Any interior is benefiting from usage of greenery or plants, overall called biophilic design. And you have definitely, I think you noticed that we have used that both in the Vodafone case study or reception of the recall. Next is technology integration, which was really important during the pandemic years. This allowed basically uninterrupted flow of the business, enabling people to effectively work from home and so on. And now it's even more important because we are transcending from that has been into now we call it hybrid, age of hybrid cooperation, and that has its important place for technology as well, and definitely for AV solutions and so on. Another important thing is employee well-being. Basically, lots of those things that we design are meant for people to feel well, be well in the office. It's quite important nowadays, and the importance of that will increase if the current development or current trends will continue. And last but not least is the flexibility and adaptability of office. Generally adaptability of the space. It's connected with basically the idea that nowadays lots of users, lots of companies are sharing, basically adopting sharing or desk sharing, which means they have less people in the space at the moment than they have employees, for example. So it allows them to have smaller spaces, but they need greater flexibility. And they also need to be able to adapt to, for example, higher demand for workforce. So the spaces are more open, more variable. So you don't need to basically do drastic construction changes when you need to grow. So after that, I think we come to the question relevance of the office. What is the relevance of the office? I think it's a great opportunity to ask you, the audience, what do you think is the relevance of the office today, or what is it for you? later on, or I will follow with my own view on that topic, and I will also share with you some interesting research or surveys that I looked up. So, as we perceive it in our praxis, relevance of the office is quite high, I would say. Basically, companies were able to function during pandemic, being only on remote, like being in lockdown, because they had some created company culture. The employees were, familiar with themselves, with their colleagues, and so on, and so they had some reserves of, if you will, company culture they could draw from. Basically, this can be, in our experience, depleted. And after years of separation, after months or years of working from home, just from home, not seeing your employees, the company culture starts to slowly, diminish, or getting not so efficient in a way of cooperation. So that's why it is really important, and I think the Vodafone example nicely shows that it's not necessary to work to go into office every day, but it's necessary to have a place that physically represents the company culture, and that's the office. It could look differently, totally different than it looked before, but it still needs to be there. Also to provide employees with, for example, tools that they do not possess at home. Also to meet their colleagues. That's the most important. But we also know that there are some companies, there's quite lots of them, I think you might know them from your experience. They are struggling to get employees back to the office after the years of lockdown. Why is that? Well, most of the time we see that there is no real reason for the employees to come back. Either they are working in the style that they really don't care whether they are working at office, at home, or somewhere else. But mostly it's because the office that they basically work in, or they work for, the company they work for, their offices are not motivating them to come in. Basically, they are not providing the possibility to choose where to work, as I mentioned in those examples before. And also it supports, this supports the surveys that I want to share with you. This survey was done by Gensler, which is basically international architecture company, quite one of the largest, and they do these surveys among their clients. If large pool, so it's quite interesting to look at it. This has been done only in United or American cities, United States, but this chart represents basically the desire of employees, how much time they want to spend in the office. So before pandemic, it was like steadily somewhere around 80 or 70%. Also pre-COVID was the same amounts, and as you can see, the blue chart represents most innovative companies. So they had a smaller ratio. They were more flexible, to say, and basically the average was more traditional. They were less flexible. Once the pandemic struck, it was here. The usage or basically, well, yeah, the usage of the office fell down. But nowadays, from the survey, as employees are responding, what would be their ideal? It's again higher than actual state. So the employees in these surveys are answering that they would like to go how they perceive that how they think that they would work better or more effectively is that they would come back to the office and they would stay there for 60 or 70, 65% of the time. Another chart is showing what is the importance of to have a choice in where to work, basically. And this circle represents years 16, 19, 20, 22. So you can see that the trend is that to have a choice where to work is increasingly is increasing significantly. So also in these different charts, it also shows that to have a choice where to work in the office, not outside of the office. This is meant for having a choice to work, for example, in a typical workplace setup or enclosed office, meeting room, relax area, and so on. So this is also connected with the satisfaction and happiness of the employees. And quite a surprise for me, this last chart is basically saying that what would be the most important reason to come to the office for employees, how they answer that. And it's to focus on their work, which is interesting because lots of time we hear that they can focus on work and do like individual work at home. But here from this study, it seems that after a couple of years in isolation or at home office, people are a bit struggling perhaps, or they would like to go back to the office also to focus on the work. What is also interesting that this is slightly higher among younger employees who are probably having not so great equipment, at home. For example, they don't have a sufficient workstation at home, so they prefer to go back to the work to be able to focus on that work. So, and this was quite surprising for me. So I believe that concludes what I have prepared for you today. Now I would like to hear whether you have any questions to that topic or something to add, perhaps.
Yeah, thank you, Jan, for the great presentation. It was really interesting to see how companies like Vodafone approach this, and also the outcomes from the surveys were quite surprising. And so there are some questions from the audience, but first I would like to ask you myself, on one of the last slides you talked about the relevance of the office and also the discrepancy between ideal state and the reality in how often you visit the office. And I wanted to ask if you have seen a case in your practice where employees really do want to work from the office, perhaps 70 or 80% of the time, on most of the days, or even all 5 days a week. So have you seen such a case, and if so, why you think is that?
You're asking whether I can name some or recall some clients who are preferring to stay in the office more often, like
Yes.
majority of the time. Yeah. Well, what is the most, I would say, mainstream preference in that is 50-50 ratio or 60-40 ratio, basically have the chance to work from home 2 or 3 days a week, and to be able to work from office 2 to 3 days a week. So that's the mainstream. There are, of course, some deviations from the mainstream, and I can most notoriously I can name offices of lawyer companies or law companies, basically, which are quite conservative, and they not only that they prefer to stay in the office because that's also the place where they meet the clients mostly. They did not in the majority they didn't accept flexible or activity-based workplace style, because they are sticking to the cellular single individual offices mostly. There are exceptions also to this rule, because I don't think I can name the client, but quite significant law company from Prague. We have last year we have done for them transformation study into flexible office, where we also adapted desk sharing ratio. So it is possible, but the trend is not so much present there.
And so importantly, this ratio of like ideal 60 to 40 or 40 to 60, is this a preferred state by the employers or the employees?
Well, I think what has happened in a couple of last years, not only the troubled 2021, 22, but also a bit before, employers started to listen more to the employees, basically, because the value of the workforce grew, and I think it's still growing, or it's in plateau at least. The opinions of the employees matter to the employers. So from my personal experience and also from the experience with the clients, I can say it's a consensus, more or less.
Thanks. So I can see we have 2 questions from the audience. Especially the first one is very interesting. So Wendla asks here, in our company, there's still quite a strong resistance against desk sharing. I think that might be more frequent than one thinks. What steps can be done to change employees' mindset and make them more open to this idea?
Well, I think it's important to explain what is the desk sharing, what it means in that specific case, because as I shown, it could mean that there is like 100 desks in the office, and there is 150 employees, and they need to share these desks, and they don't have real option, no other option, for example, where to work. They cling to the ownership of the work table, and they are afraid to let it go, basically, and to sort of like adapt or adopt feeling of ownership over larger area of the office, for example. So first, what to do about it is to design the workspace or workplace that's using desk sharing in a manner that they have other options where to sit, so they get some extra amenities from that. They will sacrifice their own desk, but they will get something in return. For example, nice kitchen, large coffee area, for example, or lots of team meeting tables or areas where they can really increase their effectiveness or pleasure from working, basically. So one thing is to design correctly the new layout or new way of working. The other thing is to properly explain to them what it means, because sometimes you will do everything right, design or the new space plan of the office will work definitely, but the employees don't believe it because they don't have the necessary information. So it's necessary, for example, to do several workshops, presentations for them, what it means, hear their fears and respond to them. That's the really important thing to do, because sometimes they fear things that are not really actually happening. To mitigate, basically to ask them and mitigate their fears. That's the advice I would give.
And I think also one of the tips I heard from your colleague in the workplace consultancy department is, if the employees feel that something is taken from them, you need to give them something else as a benefit. And that can be anything as a benefit that they can redeem, but to mitigate that feeling, basically. So following this question from Vendula, there are a few more comments in the thread. So Carolina comments, I think that people are afraid of instability. For example, situation one day they will need to work from the office, but there will be no free desk. So what she proposed, Carolina, is a better solution to plan in advance on which days of the week, which groups use the space and which work remotely. Use of the desk by a maximum of 2 people interchangeably and not at all. So I think it's also where technology comes in place.
Yes.
We ourselves at Spaceflow provide such a technology, such an app that you are able to book the desks in advance on any given day, and you basically don't need to have a rule for that or imply a schedule where people need to meet, which would be super complicated, especially in enterprise. Or perhaps you have some comment on that too?
Yeah, so you mentioned one way, way of the technology to be able to efficiently book the space in the workspace or in the office. Well, the other, which comes probably before the technology implementation, is to plan it correctly. That means to do quality survey of how the company works before, and then set the sharing ratio in the appropriate amount. So this situation doesn't happen that you basically need to set up some scenario where a couple of employees will come only on Friday, or a couple of employees will come only on Monday, for example. As an example, and in different companies it could be also different. We have at our own office we have adopted ratio of 80% basically. So that means for every 8 tables there are 10 employees, which is still quite conservative. But it has never happened here that there will be more people than tables. And I also can mention one of our projects, T-Mobile, which we did, was quite in a sense quite similar to Vodafone, but much larger in scale. And they have adopted, I think, 70% ratio. And after this, in recent years, 22, 23, they are still not having not even like 50% people in the office. So they have a larger capacity that they basically need So if you don't, for example, put 20 tables or 30 tables for 100 people, you should be in most of the scenarios fine with that desk sharing, and shouldn't be worried about basically need to schedule different people on different days at the office. But if you get to that, or if there is a culture of being much more present in the office than on average, there is also the way of basically help of technology, as Peter mentioned.
And there are surveys out there that prove that even before COVID, the occupancy on any given day tallied between 40 to 60%, because people are sick, people are on vacation, people have meetings, and so on. So there's unless you have like a really low number of desks, there is the situation where there would be more people than desks is unlikely. Another comment on this from Nicholas. In our work, using multiple displays or monitors is almost necessary. How do you have flexible choice and at the same time provide the necessary screens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. Well, we have the totally same situation here. We at the Department of Architecture or Project Documentation or Cost Management, we need large screens, two screens, for example, at the table, and still we use flexible office and desk sharing. How it is done is that basically the teams. Well, usually not whole company needs that, you know. Usually different departments have this requirement. So it's not only about, you cannot adopt like totally the desk sharing ratio that's basically all over the place, you know. We are creating sort of like neighborhoods or spaces which are dedicated to specific teams. You know, for example, this area is dedicated for technical design team. Just an example. That means that it's the individual desks are shared, but mostly only among the technical design team members. So they can choose whether they sit here or there. They can also go to the totally different side of the office, but they always know that they have a place in their own neighborhood, their team space. You know, and for example, there's like a team of 20 and they have 16 desks, for example, and this is how it works. And it definitely needs to be validated, you know, prior to the design phase with workplace strategy. So, you know, it works in a sense that, for example, the technical design team doesn't always on each and every day doesn't come in the office in a like a full number. 20 of them will come there and they will not have where to sit because they have only 16 desks. So this is why we really need in this situation to do workplace strategy analysis before we come to the design part.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So there have been some more questions. One from Kingdom, great presentation. Going forward, is there a chance hybrid working will become the best option?
As well, how we perceive the trends now, yes, I think that's going to be the way, I hope, the mainstream. There's going to be, you know, some fluctuation between how much hybrid is it. You know, it's for example, we as a company which is doing design and build, basically architecture, construction, and advisory. We are more present in the office, but still we are quite hybrid. Basically, like we have 60-40 ratio, I think. Other companies, other businesses will require different ratio, for example, but I think it still can be and should be described as a hybrid style or hybrid way of working, and as how we perceive the trends now and how they look like they are going, it's going to be the best way.
Another question from Andy. There are definitely some improvement changes in office and reception design. Do you also see changes in design or layouts to ancillary spaces such as canteens? Why or why not?
Actually, canteens are also one of the projects that we work on quite frequently. And yes, those same trends are applying to the canteens. Basically, the design of the interior is much more important than it was before. It's not just about utility; it's also about the people feeling pleasantly in those spaces. That's one aspect. The second aspect is technology. So there is an implementation of technology into information and also into access, access into those spaces, and also into paying, for example, for stuff. So the flow of the users of the canteen is much more fluent and natural than before, when you had to, for example, access through the tourniquet, wait in the queue for the cashier, and so on and so on. So yeah, definitely canteens are, in my point of view, also part of this trend, this movement or evolution.
Yeah, and being super important for socializing and as a place to rest. Definitely, these changes are needed in that type of environment too. Maybe not a question, but a comment from Melis. At our office, we are able to book our hot desks with the tenant app, and it makes things easier. Our company has dedicated desk where we have monitors and everything that the employees need, and all that employees need to do is book the table on the day and time that they want work from the office. If all tables are booked, we have still a community space where people can still use, but without displays. This provides predictability and fairness in the use of space, I believe. So yeah, I think that as we said, technology plays a great role in this, but also it's that need of having communal spaces that are suitable for work. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great comment. I didn't actually mention that aspect of having also auxiliary spaces or additional spaces, which can also allocate some employees who are not currently able to work or they don't need to work at the proper desk at the moment. So this is, for example, something that we have done with the T-Mobile, as I mentioned. There was a fear from the top management that they will have only 80% of desks, for example. So they really needed a proof that when it happens that 100% of employees will come to work, they will have place to sit. Like not just regular desks, but we needed to show them that there are other places which are quite good, which are quite sufficient for style of work, where you, for example, sit for 2 or 3 hours with the laptop dealing with emails or different stuff. Which you basically that's the style that you work, for example, in on a home office or in a cafeteria. But you have the advantage that you are in your own office with contact with your employee colleagues, and you have also access to the amenities which are there. So yeah, that's definitely important aspect, and I think it also adds on the question which was before, for how to mitigate fears from the desk sharing. Basically, those amenities, those additional spaces are providing value that's sort of like interchangeable for you needed, basically not having your own desk.
Great. And what I believe is the last question. In one of the surveys, it mentions the importance of training for people to come to the office. Training, of course, takes many forms, but for larger groups in more class-based type training, do you see companies creating more specific training-enabled spaces? If so, how are they different? Or are generic meeting rooms perfectly fine in your view?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question.
I think the last part of the question, at least, is about the type of meeting rooms. And I think you can also talk about that from your practice, because there are many type of meetings and following that type of meeting rooms.
Yeah, well, meeting room is it's not sufficient term for the wide range of things that it could like basically be. So you always need to start with the question: what is it supposed to do or provide? The meeting room, and well, first it's for me. People being able to meet and discuss something, but also depends what is it and what it is and how long they need to do it, for example. Typical meeting room that I think we all have in mind for 6 to 14, 16 people, large table with chairs one next to each other. That's not like typical meeting room suitable for meeting 30 or 60 minutes long, even longer. But for example, with just universal usage. But then internally, you need to discuss some things with your team members, and you don't need to sit at the desk for 30 or 60 minutes. It could be just for 20 minutes. You can, like brainstorm some ideas, look at some charts, look at some plans or designs that you are developing, and it only takes 20 minutes, for example. So you can do it at the land table or table that's higher. It's not like it's like a bar table, because if you, for example, stand up during the meeting, you don't experience a tiredness so much. You are much more much more awake, I would say. There is a great better blood flow in your brain if you stand. So for shorter team meetings, we design stand-up meetings either with bar stools or without them, but it's definitely higher position. Then you can have rooms that are variable. For example, you can use it for yoga classes. If you have 1 or 2 times a week yoga classes, you can use that for yoga as well. Other times it has, for example, some movable furniture for sitting, and you will use that as an informal meeting room where you don't need to rely heavily on the equipment. For example, laptops, you can just discuss or do some slide some workshop. So I think I just described typical meeting room, team meeting room with stand-up tables, and some totally informal meeting room for brainstorming or workshops. So that's how you sit there and also what you use in there. So usually there's equipment, either whiteboard or presenter or TV screen or smartboard. You know, the variety can be huge, and also always important to consider what it's supposed to do, the function of that meeting room, and equip it accordingly, basically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There is at least one more question, but I think since we're out of time, I would like to kindly ask you, Jan, if you can respond to that in the comment on LinkedIn. It was perfect to see such a great engaged audience and also your presentation. So feel free, if you have any additional questions, feel free to ask them on LinkedIn in the comment section or connect directly with us or Jan. And I would like to invite you to our half-day event that we're hosting in June. We will talk about the customer experience in real estate, both commercial and residential. So we're looking forward to that. You can stay tuned for the more details that are coming soon. And yeah, Jan, I would like to thank you for your time, for your presentation. It was great to hear the insights from the office design world.
Thank you as well. It was a pleasure being here, and I will try to answer any questions you might have in the chat box or on LinkedIn.